Welcome to Season 3 of the Questions With podcast, hosted by Quest Ventures, the top venture capital fund in Asia. I am your host, April Vano, and through this season, I aim to uncover inspiring stories of notable entrepreneurs across Asia who have incorporated ESG values and achieving impact into their business model. Follow me on a journey of discovery as I speak to accomplished entrepreneurs from various sectors ranging from fashion to finance. If I ask you to think of 5 names of neighbors living in your vicinity, chances are you would be struggling to even name one. In modern Singapore, it has become commonplace to go about our daily lives without getting to know the people and communities around us. Over at Scratchbac, it was one man's mission to change this entirely. On this episode, we have the honor to speak to Jerry Myo, the CEO and founder of Scratchbac, a company focused on enabling Singapore citizens to be in touch with their locality and feel a sense of belonging. Founded in 2021, Scratchbac has been focused on helping people build hyper-local relationships to ultimately create an ecosystem of community-wide events and projects. Today, I hope to uncover the secret behind their success and how placing social inclusivity as a priority is a winning formula for Scratchbac. Hi, Jerry. Welcome to the Questions With podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Really excited to answer your questions.
Likewise, looking forward to this conversation. And before we really get into it and perhaps understanding more about what your startup does and what you do with your team, I wanted to let our listeners get to know you a little bit better. I see that you have had some experiences being a founder in different capacities, ranging from being the founder of a student organization, Step.co in SUTD, to being the co-founder of Snap Labs. So do you think that being an entrepreneur comes quite naturally to you?
Yes, I think it's pretty natural for me. I say this mainly because of 2 reasons. First is my own personal experience, and second, some known characteristics of what makes a good entrepreneur. So for the first one, I never really did well in the first 10 years of my education, and I never really fit well even when I was doing training to be an Air Force pilot. So formal structure and regimentation was really not a thing for me. And only really excel when I get to do my own things. So that's the first one. Based on my own personal experience, I think I'm not suited for many other things, but the entrepreneurship path might be viable. For the second reason, I think is really the characteristics of being an entrepreneur. My MBTI personality test, it's ENTJ. So extraversion, intuitive, thinking and judging. I believe some of these personality traits are also early indicators of success many VCs look for in early stage founders. So things like extraversion, risk-taking, ability to handle stress. And I think Y Combinator famously look for founders that seems formidable, right? Because seems like nothing can prove you wrong, and this guy seems formidable, he can do it, that kind of feeling. So I feel like being an entrepreneur is a natural thing for me because of my personality and from what I know I don't like to do. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. So do you think that your experience prior to starting Scratchbac helped you prepare? Did you feel more ready when you started it?
Did I feel more ready when I started Scratchbac? Yeah. When I was in secondary school, I was not really concerned about school and my grades. I was running a blog shop actually. That was back in, 2008. And I was just trying to sell stuff online. That experience, that was the days before Lazada, Shopee, Taobao, any of those things being available in Southeast Asia. So that experience enabled me, being a secondary school kid, to earn actually quite a lot of money, like 8,000, 9,000 monthly as a secondary school student. But things didn't go very well towards the end, because when all these other startups came around, very quickly I realized that if I don't improve, if I don't iterate, and I don't make my business relevant, it will quickly go away. So I would say that the experience of having started multiple different businesses in tech, non-tech, I even did a vending machine business, really helped me in starting Scratchbac because I know a couple of the traps that I should not step into. Yeah. So yes, I think my prior experiences did help me to start Scratchbac.
What do you think is the hardest part of being an entrepreneur?
Ah, there's so many hard parts of being an entrepreneur. I think being an entrepreneur is a very lonely thing. So because you are the founder, you are the guy that starts the whole movement, and you need to be formidable, right? You have to take it upon yourself to know all the problems and try to solve all the problem. And as a leader of the organization, you have to create an environment for your people to excel. So you should not be giving them undue stress that they should not experience. So what happens is that usually the founder will absorb all the stress, all the problems, but they don't have an avenue to unload their emotions maybe and stress. So I think the toughest part of being a founder is that it's really a very lonely thing to do. Yeah.
Indeed, they say it's lonely on the top right, but also, of course, being a leader where, as you mentioned, you actually have to take care of your team, your stakeholders, your customers, but how do you also take care of yourself? So that brings me to my next question. How important do you think mentors or supporters are in an entrepreneur's journey?
Oh, this is a good one. I like this question a lot. I think mentors are very important. I think social capital is very important. That's also the reason why we started Scratchbac, because knowing the right people unlocks a whole range of resources to you, right? So you get to tap onto your network's resources, be it time, money, even skills. So having mentors for me, being part of my social capital really helped. I think they are very important. And there's a saying in Chinese actually, it's called 贵人. So it's kind of like, how do I translate this? Benefactors, people that will support you along the way, your champions, if I put it in another word. So mentors, advisors, people that will support you regardless what you do. I think that's very important to help with the sanity of the lonely entrepreneur.
That's so true. And of course, you want people rooting for you across the journey, especially, not just during the upside, but especially in the downside. So it's good to hear that this is something you also prioritize as an entrepreneur. And I guess that's how we link back to what Scratchbac is. And I love how intuitive it is in its name, right? How it captures the essence of what you're trying to do to build closer communities and forging connections. You said a little bit about that and why that's important to you. But can you share a little bit more about how you got started? What inspired you?
All right, thank you so much. We really love the name too. It is one of the only thing that is still a constant since day one, and that really captured the essence of what we are trying to achieve, right? A world where people help one another. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Again, it is important to me because we really believe in having strong social capital, the ability to tap onto other people's resources. So I grew up in a big family. On my dad's side, he has 9 siblings, and I have over 20 cousins. So in the family, there's somebody in insurance, there's a doctor, there's a real estate agent. So if I ever needed something, I remember when I was hospitalized, I just had to call my insurance aunt, that, hey, I'm getting hospitalized. What should I do about this? And then she advised me on what to do. I don't have to pay a cent because she got me covered with insurance and things like that. So strong social capital is very important, which I feel is missing in a lot of people's network, simply because they are not outspoken. They are not extroverted. They don't go out there and network as often as us, for example, right? So on a day-to-day, our work involves us building relationship, getting to know new people, and subsequently, when these relationships become stronger, we get to tap onto their social capital, their network. But for the day-to-day neighborhood Singaporeans, we go to work and then we go home. We go to work and then we go home. So there's no mechanism or a easy to use platform for them to reach out to other people. Yeah. So Scratchbac, that's the essence of Scratchbac. That's why building community is important to us. And yeah, thanks for loving our name.
Yeah, it's so true. It's very catchy too. But I'm sure there were also challenges when you started, right? So what were they? What were those challenges in bringing your idea to life?
Biggest challenges. There are so many problems, right, in a startup. I think it's really building the team, mostly people and communication problem. I think it's never a problem with the task or the technology. The baseline is finding people that you trust and people that believes in the vision, because if that vector is aligned, everything else that they do is aligned and can be understood, right? There's no malicious intent, there's no funny business, as long as there's trust and there's alignment in vision. So I think the biggest challenge is really finding the right people, and then subsequently most of the problem is in communication, right? What do I mean by get this done? What do you mean by it cannot be done, right? So communication. Yeah, I think the biggest problem is communication problem.
How about bringing your product to market? You talk about your team and the challenge of communication and making sure they're aligned. But when you actually reached out to your first customers, or even until now, any challenges you face?
In bringing the product to market? Yes, I would say that Singaporeans, or maybe Asians in general, are more skeptical of new things and products. And as a society, we don't really support entrepreneurs as much as in the Western societies. We don't champion our entrepreneurs, we don't champion our own startups, which can be a big problem, because very easily people downplay your efforts, or they don't believe in your vision. So the communication effort becomes much harder. In terms of bringing our product to market, I think the problem is again communication, right? We just got to repeat the same thing again and again. If somebody complains about us, or there's something that they don't like, we talk to them, we explain to them what is our vision, what is the purpose, what is the intention, what are we trying to achieve. And I find ourselves doing that very, very often in the Singapore market. When I was in United States, I was a student in UC Berkeley, and every idea is a good idea. Everybody will support the idea. They'll listen openly, and oh, hey, that's a great idea. You should totally do it. And then that kind of culture. Yeah, so I think going to market in Southeast Asia, I think skeptical user base is one big problem.
All right, thanks for sharing that. And I would also take it even further, right? In terms of competing with long-established social platforms, for example, how did you navigate that, and what do you really think makes you stand out?
So let's define social platforms in the conventional means. When we talk about social platforms, people usually think of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. These are social networks, right? But we don't really see these guys as our competitors, to be honest, because our value proposition is very different. We are not looking to copy their features or steal their users. We are really thinking about how to build the best experience for people to build relationships in real life, right? So we don't exist just in the clouds or digitally. We really pride ourselves to be a phygital social app, which means physical digital. We want to provide multiple touch points for users to interact, get to know one another, and ultimately meet in real life. Because we believe that is the best way to build relationships, by meeting a person and talking to them, spending some time together, be it at an event or at a coffee shop, trying to understand one another. So that's how we differentiate ourselves. If we really have to put a finger to competitors out there, I would say it's more of people like Meetup.com, Eventbrite, perhaps even Bumble BFF, right? So they also have some element of hyperlocality and bring people together to meet in person. But I think as a startup, what we can do is We are not a 100-ton gorilla, right? Like we can move in any direction we want because we don't have a large user base that's holding us back for things that they are already familiar with. So our platform has actually went through 3 major overhauls. The feature sets were totally different. But so what, right? We are young and we are a new challenger in the ecosystem. We can do whatever we want. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a lot of changes and pivoting and making sure that you really meet the needs of your community. So how do you now envision Scratchbac's journey going forward?
Right. So for the first half, up until this point, what we've been trying to do is building relationship, and subsequently we found out that our users are meeting in real life, and so we pivoted and we focused on helping people build relationships by getting them to meet in real life. So having understood that, now we also have an inkling of what our business model is, right? So we are really in the business of footfall. How can we, our users are already meeting in real life. So how can we bring footfall to a cafe, to a shop, to any brick and mortar, right? So Scratchbac's journey moving forward is proof that we can channel footfall and bring in revenue so that we can become a sustainable platform, and definitely to expand out of Singapore, because Singapore is a tiny market. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do moving forward.
That's exciting to now take a look at what's beyond Singapore. So looking forward to seeing that and rooting for you, of course. But so far, with the success you have, what do you think is the most important factor that contributed to it?
Right. I spoke to multiple investors that told me the same thing. They said the only difference between a successful startup and a non-successful startup is that the founder never stop trying. Right. So the moment you stop trying, you fail. But if you continue to struggle, continue to wiggle, continue to strive to become better, I think you can become better or to become successful. Of course, I don't think Scratchbac is anywhere near the definition of success. But yeah, I think why we are still here today is because we never stop trying.
Never stop trying. Very good thing to note, right? For any entrepreneur listening in as well, or maybe aspiring entrepreneurs. But also what's interesting that I found out is that you have quite a young team, right? Were there any challenges you faced in such a situation, or do you think having a young team is an advantage?
I think having a young team is definitely an advantage because it's like having a blank canvas, right? All right, so there's pros and there's also cons, right? Having a blank canvas means we can do anything we want. The products that we build, the structures, the processes that we build in the organization are from scratch. So we build those things ourselves, and we made it in a way that really works for us, right? For a startup, and that's a plus point because we can get really creative. We don't have any prior knowledge inhibiting our innovation. So that's great. And young people understands young people, right? If you are building a product for young people, then you should probably get young people to build that product. So that's another pro. In terms of cons, because we are a blank piece of canvas, inevitably we don't have the experience to handle certain problems because we haven't faced them before, right? For example, back when we were all students, when we built any product or any projects, that product only has to last for 5 minutes, right? We go to the presentation room, we pitched it, we press the button, it works, and we call it a day. We didn't know that to build a production level product, it has to handle how 10,000 different users use it in 10,000 different ways. And you got to build every single part of it. So we really dropped into every single pitfall. From the first launch, our sign-up system broke down because we didn't do proper QA. That's because we are too young, right? We don't have the technical know-how to prevent that error. But now along the way, we have already built those capabilities. So that's great. So pros, I would say the pros outweigh the cons, because every single con that I can think of today is something that I could have learned or gotten advice from a mentor or somebody else, right? I could have talked to somebody, I could have read up somewhere, and those things can be solved. But if you are already doing certain things for the past 10 years in a certain way, it's probably gonna hard to change. There's a saying, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, right? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so I would think that having a really young team is great.
Thanks for that. And yes, you were saying there's a lot of ups and downs and challenges and mistakes here and there. But perhaps you could share with us a moment in which you felt, that success or that satisfaction, being the CEO or founder. Any one or two moments that are very memorable to you?
All right. So I'll have to bring you back to the origin story of why we started Scratchbac. I started Scratchbac because I wanted to borrow a drill, right, like an electric drill, and I didn't want to buy it because it's expensive. And if you buy it, you use it once, you're probably gonna throw it in the storeroom for the next 10 years. So I want to borrow a drill. I went around knocking doors, and then I found out that I don't know people around me, and nobody wanted to lend me a drill, right? So that was my problem. And because of that, we started building some prototypes to solve that problem. How do we reach out to people around so that we can borrow stuff, exchange resources? So fast forward to, I think, sometime in March, I saw a post on Scratchbac. Somebody was requesting for a drill. And then immediately I saw the comments. Within 5 minutes, I saw 2 comments saying, "Hey, I have one. Do you want to meet up? I can pass it to you at the lobby." So that was the moment for me where I felt really good, and that was one of the highs in Scratchbac.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, of course, sometimes a lot of founders or ideas come from your own need, right? You are your first customer, so to speak. So that's very interesting story that you shared right there. So, I mean, of course, we have talked about Scratchbac and your team. Now let's zoom out a little bit in the industry itself with, the social app space. And like you said, about being a hyper-local sort of business model. What do you think is, the greatest opportunity as well as the threat in the industry?
I think the social app space is primed for disruption. It's been around for a good 15 years or so. And we are talking about Facebook days, right? Prior to Facebook, there's so many other platforms. It's prime for disruption because there's new technology, there's new consumer behaviors. A segment of people would really want to have more autonomy and ownership over the products that they're using. So that gave birth to, of course, together with blockchain technology, that gave birth to social apps that are DAOs. Right? So you own part of the DAO and then use it. And then, so that's one direction, anonymous, decentralized, you own it, and freedom of speech, right? That's that. And actually Scratchbac is going in a totally different way. We believe that the platform should be different, right? But it should not be anonymized. Because we feel that if you don't know who you're talking to or you are behind the screen, a lot of things that you wouldn't normally do in the real society, you would do it online. You suddenly become very critical. You don't care about what people feel. You just say whatever you want, right? So what we are trying to do on Scratchbac is trying to mimic the behavior of in real life human behaviors and society to the extreme and transfer it onto the digital platform. So I give you an example. If so online, right, if you say something, somebody can come in and say, "Hey, you are an idiot, right? This is ridiculous, so and so." And they don't care because nobody's gonna see. Nobody's gonna know who they are. There's no repercussion. In real life, perhaps in the classroom setting, if you voice your opinion, and what ensues is a proper debate and a discussion, probably I would assume because of social pressure, people wouldn't come in and say, "Hey, you're an idiot," just scold you out of the blue. So can we mimic this social norm, this social pressure to get people to act in a more gentlemanly way onto the social platform. So that's where we think social apps should go to. Be more open, be more transparent, and be more safe for you to share who you are. And our answer lies in hyperlocality. So if you are in the neighborhood, you know that your mom is in the neighborhood, your aunt, all your friends are there. Chances of you going around shouting like a mad person is lower. That's what I think. Yeah. So the greatest opportunity is that it's prime for change. Technology can support a lot of these changes. And the greatest threat is also the change. Because when there is change, there's disruption, multiple different value propositions will arise. And who is to say what is the best thing for the next 20 years? It could be a decentralized, anonymized platform that nobody's know anybody and you can say whatever you want. Or it can be a platform that is totally transparent, totally public. Everybody knows everybody, and there's repercussions if you are a bad actor in the society. So I think that's the where we are at in terms of the social space.
Indeed, there's different directions, and let's see how we evolve, right, as a society, but also as a society using technology. So it's very interesting to see how that will transpire. So I want to also zero in on a certain reality, let's say, that we face in Singapore, where there's an increasing concern of elderly loneliness, for example. How do you think an app like yours cater to these groups, especially if they are not the tech savvy ones? Like, how do you think your role comes into play?
I think that we need to be very pragmatic about this. I don't think our platform is the solution to solve elderly loneliness, simply because the elderlies are not using these technologies. And that's why they are not our target audience, right? That being said, I do think that elderly loneliness is a problem, and perhaps in 20 years' time, the more technologically savvy people will become elderlies, and those are probably going to be our target. But in the interim, we are not targeting this segment of population.
Yeah, that's a good point, of course, and that's also good as a startup that you know who you are targeting for what you are building and for what your product can serve. But I guess in a general sense, right, in terms of social gaps and challenges, increasing focus on ESG globally, how do you foresee the future of social apps? I mean, you being part of it, but not just entirely just Scratchbac.
So actually, we have seen early signs of how intergeneration communications can occur on the Scratchbac platform. We didn't set out to achieve those things, but it happened naturally. So we've seen young people talking about depression. We've seen maybe older people talking about depression or certain needs. And people from different demographics come in to support one another because they find commonalities in terms of where they stay. So common identity by location. So I think it's an opportunity in the social space for us is how can we create a common identity by location such that people across different demographics are able to interact with one another more on a more regular basis and support one another. Yeah.
I agree. And, again, it's about technology being a positive force, right? Or helping society with its challenges. So, if not Scratchbac, but at least the social apps industry can really grow towards that direction. Now, let's just talk about also the recent situation we just came out of, right? The COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdowns. How did this shape the industry, you think, and the way you run your startup?
Scratchbac was born out of COVID-19. We started as a student project, and it was at the height of COVID-19 in Singapore. We were under lockdown, or what we call circuit breaker, and everybody were at home, right? I was at home and I want to install an IKEA shelf on my wall. That's why I needed a drill. So because of the lockdown, I think a lot of people are used to 2 years of non-social interaction, non-physical social interactions. And a newer generation of people, for the longest period of time while they were growing up, they don't interact with people in real life. And that's where we come in, right? I think COVID-19 made it such that living digitally became norm. But we also, because of COVID-19, we did see a spike in social issues, depression cases, mental health issues. Scratchbac's position in this topic is that there needs to be more physical interactions between people. And so we really pride ourselves to be a digital platform, connecting the digital to physical. Yeah.
I really like that, Jerry. Of course, I said I love your name, but what you just said about digital, that's quite interesting of putting that together. And that's so true. In terms of social or interpersonal relationships, there has to be that sort of transformation with the digital space and interconnection with people in person or physically. And yeah, you were just sharing that this is something that you came up with or you tried to start during the pandemic. We may also have some listeners here coming up with ideas or innovative solutions. Well, maybe they are students too, or maybe not. What kind of advice or pieces of advice would you like to give them for those who are listening?
All right. This is a hard one. So many things that you need to do. I think setting the vision right is very important, right? Knowing what you want to achieve, knowing the vision, knowing the mission, is the first step. And you must really believe in it, because if you don't believe in it, nobody else will believe. That's the first step. Second step is to convince people, right? So you have prepared that, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to make the world a better place. And now you got to convince people, right? You either convince co-founders that are willing to do this together with you. You need to convince customers that believe that the vision is sound, what you're selling them or providing them the service or product makes sense. You need to convince investors maybe to invest in your idea. So my advice to students who are interested in walking the entrepreneurial path is to really understand what you want to achieve with being an entrepreneur. And if being an entrepreneur is the best way to achieve that. Why? Because if I want to save the world, maybe I can be a police, right? If I want to, I don't know, improve education, I can work in the education ministry. It does not have to be an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is something that you must really come from yourself. And going back to the characteristics of entrepreneurs, right? I really believe that entrepreneurs are people with a bit of narcissism, have narcissistic tendencies, right? Because we have super high confidence. We really believe that we can change the world, and we believe that we are the person to change the world. So yeah, you got to think about it, whether you are the person and you believe that you are the person, and that's probably the first 3 steps you can take.
Thanks, Jerry. Before we close out, you were saying those words for those who might be aspiring entrepreneurs, but yourself as a startup founder and social entrepreneur, there are many others like yourself trying to change the world with different enterprises and different ideas, right? So maybe now some words of encouragement to your peers, to your fellow social entrepreneurs, maybe a closing note that you can share to them.
All right. I think the world is going to ape shit, and which means that now is the best time for change, for disruption, and we should. Right, so I got to come up with something better, right? Never stop trying. The world is ripe for disruption, and believe that you are the one that can do it.
There you have it. Thanks, Jerry. Of course, we got to cheer each other on. Obviously, we want to create this support system of fellow social entrepreneurs and startup founders that are really trying to shape and change the world for the better. So thank you so much again, Jerry, for joining us in this episode. And thank you to all those tuning in to this episode of Questions with Scratchbac, featuring the company's CEO and founder, Jerry Nyo. So for more episodes like this, be sure to hit the follow button on whichever platform you're listening from. I am your host, April Ong Vano. Till next time, everyone.